Hi, my name's Ben, and I'm a librarian from the Worcester Public Library. The Grapes of Wrath is one of my favorite books of all time. Although it's set during the Great Depression, it's a timeless story with enduring value. The same issues brought up by Steinbeck in this book still ring true today. Machines pushing people out of their jobs, banks maneuvering to push families off property they have owned for generations, and unrestrained corporations pushing people into cruel and inhumane situations. At the same time, Steinbeck, with great feeling, shows the importance of human dignity, as well as the triumph and resilience of the human spirit despite larger social forces. If you were forced to read this book in high school, it may have been lost on you, but I urge everyone to give this one another read. You're sure to love it. When it first came out in 1939, The Grapes of Wrath was burned by the East St. Louis Public Library and barred from the New York Public Library in Buffalo for containing vulgar words. In Kansas, the Board of Education ordered The Grapes of Wrath removed for indecency, obscenity, abhorrence of the portrayal of women, and for portraying life in such a bestial way. It was also banned in Missouri and Kern County, California, in the year that it came out. Grapes of Wrath went on to be banned and challenged in many other places, including Ireland, Manitoba, Canada, and several schools in the US. Any book that has been challenged and banned and burned is sure to be a good read. Why make all the fuss otherwise? The short part I'm going to read, while not part of the main story arc, is a moving scene which is a microcosm of the many themes contained within the book. God Almighty, the road is full of them families going west. Never seen so many. Gets worse all the time. Wonder where the hell they all come from. Wonder where they all go, said May. Come here for gas sometimes, but they don't hardly never buy nothing else. People say they steal. We ain't got nothing laying around. They ain't never stole nothing from us. Big Bill, munching his pie, looked up the road through the screened window. Better tie your stuff down. I think you got some of them coming now. A 1926 Nash sedan pulled wearily off the highway. The back seat was piled nearly to the ceiling with sacks, with pots and pans, and on the very top right, up against the ceiling, two boys rode. On top of the car, a mattress and a folded tent poles tied along the running board. The car pulled up to the gas pumps. A dark-haired, hatchet-faced man got slowly out, and the two boys slid down from the load and hit the ground. May walked around the counter and stood in the door. The man was dressed in gray wool trousers and a blue shirt, dark blue with sweat on the back and under the arms. The boys in overalls and nothing else, ragged patches over all. Their hair was light, and it stood up evenly all over their heads, for it had been roached. Their faces were streaked with dust. They went directly to the mud puddle under the hose and dug their toes into the mud. The man asked, "Can we get some water, ma'am?" A look of annoyance crossed May's face. "Sure, go ahead," she said softly over her shoulder. "I'll keep my eye on the hose." She watched while the man slowly unscrewed the radiator cap and ran the hose in. A woman in the car, a flaxen-haired woman, said, "See if you can't get it here." The man turned off the hose and screwed on the cap again. The little boys took the hose from him, and they upended it and drank thirstily. The man took off his dark, stained hat and stood with a curious humility in front of the screen. Could you see your way to sell us a loaf of bread, ma'am?" May said, "This ain't a grocery store. We got bread to make sandwiches." "I know, ma'am." His humility was insistent. "We need bread, and there ain't nothing for quite a piece, they say." "If we sell bread, we're gonna run out." May's tone was faltering. "We're hungry," said the man. Why don't you buy a sandwich? We got nice sandwiches, hamburgers. We'd sure admire to do that, ma'am, but we can't. We got to make a dime do all of us. And he said embarrassedly, we ain't got but a little. May said, you can't get no loaf of bread for a dime. We only got 15-cent loaves. From behind her, Al growled, God almighty, May, give 'em bread. We'll run out for the truck comes. Run out then, God damn it, said Al, and he looked sullenly down at the potato salad he was mixing. May shrugged her plump shoulders and looked to the truck drivers to show them what she was up against. She held the screen door open, and the man came in, bringing a smell of sweat with him. The boys edged in behind him, and they went immediately to the candy case and stared in, not with craving, or with hope, or even with desire, but just with a kind of wonder that such things could be. They were alike in size, and their faces were alike. One scratched his dusty ankle with his toenails of his other foot. The other whispered some soft message, and then they straightened their arms so that their clenched fists in the overall pockets showed through the thin blue cloth. May opened a drawer and took out a long wax paper wrapped loaf. This here's a 15-cent loaf. The man put his hat back on his head. He answered with inflexible humility, won't you? Can't you see your way to cut off 10 cents worth? Al said snarlingly, God damn it, May, give him the loaf. The man turned towards Al. No, we want to buy 10 cents worth of it. We got it figured awful close, mister, to get to California. May said resignedly, you could have it for 10 cents. That'd be robbing you, ma'am. Go ahead. Al says take it. She pushed the wax-papered loaf across the counter. The man took a deep leather pouch from his rear pocket, untied the strings, and spread it open. It was heavy with silver and with greasy bills. It may sound funny to be so tight, he apologized. We got 1,000 miles to go, and we don't know if we'll make it. He dug in the pouch with a forefinger, located a dime, and pinched in for it. When he put it down on the counter, he had a penny with it. He was about to drop the penny back into the pouch when his eye fell on the boys, frozen before the candy counter. He moved slowly down to them. He pointed in the case at big long sticks of striped peppermint. Is them penny candy, ma'am? May moved over and looked in. Which ones? There, them stripy ones. The little boys raised their eyes to their face as they stopped breathing. Their mouths were partly opened, their half-naked bodies were rigid. Oh, them. Well, no, them's 2 for a penny. Well, give me 2 then, man. He placed the copper cent carefully on the counter. The boys expelled their breath held softly. May held the big sticks out. Take 'em, said the man. They reached timidly. Each took a stick, and they held them down at their sides and did not look at them. But they looked at each other, and their mouth corners smiled rigidly with embarrassment. Thank you, ma'am. The man picked up the bread and went out the door, and the little boys marched stiffly behind him, the red striped sticks held tightly against their legs. They leaped like chipmunks over the front seat and on the top of the load, and they buried back out of sight like chipmunks. The man got in and started his car. With a roaring motor and a cloud of blue, oily smoke, the ancient Nash climbed up on the highway and went on its way west. From inside the restaurant, the truck drivers and May all stared after them. Big Bill wheeled back. "Them wasn't two for a cent candy," he said. "What's it to you?" May said fiercely. "Them was nickel apiece candy," said Bill. "We gotta get going," said the other man. "We're dropping time." They reached in their pockets. Bill put a coin on the counter, and the other man looked at it and reached again and put down a coin. They swung around and walked to the door. "So long," said Bill. May called, "Hey, wait a minute. You got change." "You go to hell," said Bill, and the screen door slammed. May watched them get into the great truck, watched it lumber off in low gear, and heard the shift up the winding gears to cruising ratio. "Al," she said softly. He looked up from the hamburger he was patting thin and stacking between waxed papers. "What do you want?" "Look here." She pointed at the coins beside the cups. 2 $half. Al walked near and looked, and then he went back to work. "Truck drivers," May said reverently.